What's up, y'all? Welcome back to my studio. So if you are a Roman Reigns fan, I think this video might be for you because personally, I've always been a big fan of the Tribal Chief character, of how he was years ago, of being a John Cena 2.0. That Vince McMahon tries his hardest to get fans to like him, but little to no effort was being done right. Even announcing that he has blood cancer, then coming back and telling everybody that he's in remission just to get a pop, that did nothing also. But in 2020, that's when I was like, okay, now I can take this guy seriously right now. So he's one of the main reasons why I love watching SmackDown. His promos, the way he entertains people, and he's a real nigga, a gangster on SmackDown. So link to the original video will be down below.
Don't lose.
Roman Reigns is the undisputed #1 star of this generation. There is nobody who WWE has invested more time and consequences into, and even if you argue that someone like Seth Rollins is a #2, the gap between them is quite big. For over 3 years now, we've seen Roman Reigns portray one of the more over characters in modern WWE history, cement his name as one of the all-time great villains, and arguably even above some of them that you may think of that come into that conversation. This period has been such a smashing success that many fans forgot about the disastrous 5 or 6 years that led up to him becoming the most popular star now in WWE. Let's take a look at the first time Roman Reigns tried to be the main event guy and fell quite a bit short, or at least in the eyes of some he did. We'll get into the nitty-gritty here. It's Sportskeeda Wrestling. I'm Kevin. Let us know what you think in the comments below. All the way back in his early days in pro wrestling in WWE NXT, coming under the Anoa'i wrestling family legacy, Jim Ross described Roman Reigns as being a guy who had the it factor. But he probably wouldn't have expected it to take nearly a decade to really come together. During his days with the Shield, remember the most breakout...
I'll be honest with you, him with the Shield was probably one of the best additions to his character. And even when he was a heel, he was more genuine. He was all action, but less talk. But once the Shield broke up in 2014, he was still being the Roman Reigns that we knew him before, while being a heel, but he was all action too. But like I said, once 2015 rolled around, that's when it all went downhill from there.
Talk that much, played the cool hand Luke Muscle type role, and it was the perfect role for him to be the powerhouse. They clearly played up his strengths because he wasn't really a defined talking personality in WWE at the time. It was always talked about that WWE had plans to push Roman Reigns as the breakout star of the Shield, based on what CM Punk has gone on the record about when he had to take on the entire faction in a handicap match on pay-per-view to, quote, make Roman look really strong during their encounters. He had a strong performance at the Survivor Series in 2000 to make him the guy outside of the Shield.
What happened?
He broke Kane's 13-year-old elimination record in the Rumble match, taking a whopping 12 superstars over the top rope, falling short of eliminating the winner of the match, Batista. In the year that followed, WWE continued to push Roman as the next guy, the perfect candidate to win the 2015 Royal
here we
Rumble.
go.
But fans simply weren't buying it. And maybe WWE, or some people within the company, didn't realize how wrong they were about putting him on that pedestal and saying, hey, this is the next guy. Jumping back into that Japanese golden boy, and that became an increasingly apparent thing over the summer of 2014. Brock Lesnar would defeat John Cena to win his first WWE Championship in over a decade, and some fans quickly spotted the plan was going to be the new golden boy, Roman Reigns, against the golden beast in Brock Lesnar. To complicate these problems even further, Roman Reigns was out of action due to a hernia and had to take the rest of the year off, but was still named the Superstar of the Year anyway. While Rollins was making his name and almost kind of being this generation's Edge in a way, Dean Ambrose broke from the faction and was organically getting over on his own. So where was Roman Reigns outside of the Shield? Even though he was getting the biggest spotlight of the year, some people say it just wasn't connecting with all of the fans, specifically the dudes. The ladies and the kids showed up for the big dog. That's right, they called him the big dog then. But the fellas like me were like, I don't like this guy. The only problem was that WWE officials seemed to think that by making him, Roman Reigns, John Cena's successor, that he had to be exactly like John Cena.
Epic fail. That was one of the most epic fails in pro wrestling history, because I don't know what Vince McMahon was thinking, try to make Roman Reigns into John Cena, and when John Cena literally just exposed him. And I'll never forget back in 2017 when John Cena and Roman Reigns had that segment on Raw, and John Cena was cooking Roman Reigns, telling him to cut a promo if he wants to be the big dog, if he wants to be the biggest face in the company. So you can say it's scripted, but what happened behind the scenes comes to light. Vince McMahon was responsible for everything of trying to get this dude over. And each time that he tries time and time again, nah, it wasn't even worth it.
Matches and almost exact same thing, and they were wrong to go with that route. The perfect example of this was the horrible Suffering Succotash.
Oh my God, that promo.
Someone.
Bro, who can forget that episode of SmackDown when Roman Reigns cut one of the absolute worst promos in his career? Suffering Succotash? What the hell is that supposed to mean, bruh? Like, you can tell Vince McMahon was writing all of his promos, and it definitely showed a lot. But then again, I was just turned off about it looking back at it now. And it became one of his biggest downfalls in wrestling history. That promo alone, and the Magic Bane stories to the Big Show on Raw. How are we supposed to take a man seriously with that kind of promo? No, 2015 was such a trashy year for WWE. And when I say I'm not really surprised by it, I'm not.
For years, it's become a meme within wrestling circles in its own right.
While you were busy doing Suffering Succotash.
Remember that Royal Rumble issue we mentioned earlier? Yeah, that was a Royal Rumble where the fans were going with Daniel Bryan and WWE went with someone else. In 2015,
all because he was big, strong, good looking.
WWE wouldn't make the same mistake again, and finally Daniel Bryan would get his Royal Rumble win and be rocketed back into WrestleMania greatness. Instead, he lasted a whopping 10 minutes before he was eliminated. And the crowd in Philadelphia, a crowd that is known for turning on things. Yes, this is a city that once threw snowballs at Santa Claus at a football game. Yeah, they caused an uproar because they knew WWE was going with Roman Reigns in this match. And they weren't having it. And it blew up.
I don't blame them.
They did. Even when The Rock made a surprise return to help.
You can thank Vince McMahon for that.
They weren't buying it. The expression on the Great One's face when he endorsed Roman Reigns showed how awkward this experience was. This was the start of the shoving Roman Reigns down your throat era. Is that an era? And the dreaded period in WWE history played out. There were great matches, but the storylines just lacked the connection emotionally with the audience, at least in some circles. Since Daniel Bryan was a clear fan favorite, WWE thought having Roman Reigns beat him clean in the main event of the Fastlane show before Mania would earn him the respect.
Man, that was one of those worst times in wrestling.
An attempt to make Roman Reigns the next guy. They were going to cement him here at the biggest show of the year. He got the role to take on WWE World Heavyweight Champion Brock Lesnar in the main event of WrestleMania 31. In an attempt to deal with the circumstances that WWE was in with the 50-50 responses to Roman Reigns, they went with the cash-in of all cash-ins, the Money in the Bank cash-in of
Seth Rollins might have saved the main event from being the worst of WrestleMania 31.
Former faction member Roman Reigns, and of course Brock Lesnar. For fans, this was a big relief. Specifically fans who just weren't buying into Roman Reigns. And for WWE's high brass, it seemed like it was only a small setback in their plans overall. Rollins,
and to be honest with you, the whole build-up to WrestleMania 31 with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar was one of the most disastrous build-ups I've ever seen. Roman Reigns was not even ready to compete with Brock Lesnar. He was not ready from the beginning, ever since he won the Royal Rumble. But what made it worse is in 2016 when he really tried to get over with the fans. Also backfired on them as well. And Vince McMahon was 100% responsible for everything.
Injury came up and really derailed his run there. This forced Rollins to vacate the championship. And since they were already building Roman Reigns back up organically, or at least trying to,
Bro, we don't need to see that,
put in
bro.
the driver's seat and won the title at the Survivor Series tournament. Yeah, this was the first time in his career, and he beat Dean Ambrose to do it, who was by far a little bit more popular. His moment was quickly taken away by Sheamus, who once again cashed in the Money in the Bank contract on him to kickstart a feud against Roman Reigns. Although his run only lasted 22 days, it surprisingly led to Roman Reigns getting cheered when he won the WWE
Like, what was the need for them to actually put contact lenses in his eyes?
Same place that booed him at the Rumble.
I don't get it.
Let's add a little bit more context here. Mr. McMahon decided to end
the
his
real
hiatus
cancer
from being
of
on
professional
television
wrestling.
for quite some time, and personally returned to feud with Roman.
The real cancer.
Try to turn him into another Stone Cold or anti-authority figure. In hindsight, it seemed like even McMahon was unaware.
And to be honest with you, I was rooting for Roman Reigns to win the championship on Raw. It was probably one of the best endings of Raw. But the following weeks in the weeks that followed, they went back to him being booed, not getting over with the crowd because Vince McMahon once again wants to make him into a John Cena and Stone Cold 2.0, and it did not work. So instead of him being himself, Vince McMahon just wants to destroy what was already great in the first place with this cat.
Roman Reigns, the exact dialed-in thing. It led to temporarily having a Band-Aid placed on Roman Reigns' situation, and once the year began in 2016, the crowd quickly turned on the future Tribal Chief.
See what I mean?
That's right, he's not the Tribal Chief yet. For one, Mr. McMahon announced for the second time in history the WWE Championship would be on the line in the Royal Rumble, making it the first time this had been done since 1992. In that instance, the title was vacant, but this was the first time a champion with Reigns was the central figure of it all, and all the hype about his unique match solely revolved around one man. Triple H, yes, who was very much an authority figure in WWE at the time, would make his return as the last entrant and eliminate Roman Reigns, along with Dean Ambrose, to become a 14-time world champion.
This is back when he was healthy before he had the cardiac arrest.
Hero heading into WrestleMania 32.
Forced him to retire.
And marching through all of that, a triple threat main event was booked for Fastlane, where Brock Lesnar would face Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns in a triple threat to determine the game's opponent for WrestleMania 32. But we all knew where this was going, right? WWE fans made it clear that it was Dean Ambrose who they were behind, and they felt he deserved the main event, which is why it was so underwhelming when he ate a pinfall at the hands of Roman Reigns. Another main event with Roman Reigns, another main event that fans were weary of. At least, you know.
And here's the funny part about this match. This whole main event of WrestleMania, when everybody was behind Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, nobody behind Roman Reigns because of his bad character. Even when Stephanie got speared through the table by accident, like, that wasn't enough to get Roman Reigns over. Fans did not like his character. They did not like his babyface run because of Vince McMahon was throwing at us and throwing at him. So you could say that Triple H and Stephanie McMahon were the face of this moment, but not throughout the entire week or throughout the years until they made some personal changes with the company. So I'm gonna get to that towards the end of the video.
But the forced push he was receiving had completely opposite effects than that of what WWE had really desired. Looking back at it, this was a pretty infuriating time. In front of the biggest crowd that WWE had ever pulled in history, that's right, they're still WWE, there would be no change of plans. Roman Reigns would get his coronation, whether anybody liked it or not, and it was a match that simply couldn't follow other matches on the card. It was good, but the story just, once again, wasn't connecting like you think it should.
At all.
So what was WWE's solution to get around 100,000 people turning on Roman Reigns winning the title? Well, some internet sleuths have accused but cannot confirm that WWE manipulated the audio on the broadcast, and we can't confirm that for you.
I mean, that's how they do, because they don't want real heat
out there. It was quickly noticed, but admittedly, the post-WrestleMania 32 time was one of the better times while WWE television was rated PG. Roman Reigns became a 3-time world champion in just the span of a few months and had really strong performances in back-to-back classics with AJ Styles, which were very underrated. By this point,
I love that match as well, but I still hated the character.
He was sorely missed and was cheered more than anybody else. Surely WWE would turn him babyface. You know, distance makes the Seth Rollins grow fonder, right? Wrong. They kept him as a villain and set up a story where he would pursue the title that he never lost, the WWE World Championship.
When he came back, the crowd lost it. He had one of the best pops I've ever heard in years. And it really goes to show you that the character of Roman Reigns at the time was still not getting over with the fans. And it was really not surprising that Vince McMahon is throwing his money to make him out to be somebody that he's not. Even when he tries his hardest time and time again to get this nigga over, and it was still not working. So that time when Seth Rollins returned to challenge Roman Reigns for the title, you knew that things were about to get really good. At the time.
A rather surprising move, though. Rollins defeated Roman Reigns clean to become the next WWE champion. Only this time, the moment.
I forgot about that.
By a Money in the Bank.
I forgot about Dean Ambrose.
From their Shield brother.
Had the Money in the Bank cash in the title.
Roman Reigns' title loss was
that was an interesting moment right there.
By a failed drug test, violating the company's 30-day wellness policy and leading to a shocking 30-day suspension. Roman Reigns has argued that this was simply an issue with medication that came up wrong on a drug test. It was a big deal at the time, and WWE decided to once again keep him a bit on the down low for a few months. Bad timing. Roman Reigns, being called the Big Dog, was drafted to Raw to begin a challenge for the Universal Championship that was introduced around this time, and fell short against Kevin Owens multiple times due to all that outside interference. But by the 2017 Royal Rumble, after losing to KO again, he would make one of the most hated, despised, and argued moves yet. In just a little context, the 2017 Rumble had a number 30 spot that people had huge expectations for. The Royal Rumble, people have unreasonable expectations for it. Some people...
The fact that Undertaker showed up in the Royal Rumble, I thought he looked good, but in actuality, he was not healthy at all. He was not himself. So they tried to make it seem like Roman Reigns really tried to retire Undertaker, which we know the Undertaker had no business in the ring in the first place. I mean, Mark really wanted to retire as the Undertaker, but I think for the most part, their match at WrestleMania was really, really bad, and it was just not worth watching, in my opinion.
Some thought Kenny Omega's going to come over, or maybe The Rock's going to come back. Please fulfill our widespread fantasy booking. So imagine the reaction when over 50,000 people saw that it was Roman Reigns who entered at number 30. Yeah, they didn't like it. It sucked the entire energy out of the arena. And Reigns was essentially used as a scapegoat to be a run him to get Randy Orton cheered. Imagine the situation. He was being used to get circumstantial heat on the eventual Rumble. But what he did at the 2017 Rumble was eliminate The Undertaker and set up a WrestleMania clash against him, where the only point of the story was the two men were going to prove whose yard it was. That's right. Get off my lawn and get out of my yard, and we're going to fight at WrestleMania. Rumors came together that Roman Reigns versus the Surely enough, that is how it played out. Roman Reigns became the second man to defeat the Taker at Mania. And the end of the show was meant to be a clear-cut farewell for the Phenom, or at least we thought so at the time. It was a hard-to-watch match. Undertaker had some physical issues.
So bad, bruh.
Would later return that year to squash John Cena in less than 3 minutes at the next year's
And even that match was even worse than the match he had with Roman Reigns. But Undertaker at least looked better than he did the following year.
Level of heat. Anything at all, apart from him repeatedly saying that I'm not a bad guy, I'm a good guy, I'm just the guy. Yeah, he was literally playing up the perception around him being the guy put on the pedestal. He spent the rest of the year in important storylines and failed to win to have a blockbuster Roman Reigns versus
why is this
Lesnar
video
match
skipping
at WrestleMania 34 as the main event, attempting yet another coronation. Roman Reigns had a feud against John Cena in the summer of that year. Here we go. They're going to make Cena make Reigns into the next Cena. It was a pretty good match.
Yeah, it was.
And the build to it, though, kind of had some issues. Yeah, with John Cena calling out Roman Reigns,
exposing Roman Reigns on the spot.
Certain lines in his
I will never forget that moment.
That didn't mean that he was going to lose to Cena. And
like, he was beginning his line so bad, like it showed.
The torch moment, and it just didn't completely hit the mark.
Nope.
There was a brief Shield reunion that protected him from getting booed, but he was ultimately replaced by Kurt Angle in their first match back together, which was a bit of a bummer, but hey, at least he got to have that sight of Kurt Angle in a bulletproof vest. One of the big fundamental issues was that while Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose broke out and created their own characters away from the Shield, Roman Reigns was still much being treated as a one-man Shield. He still had a modified version of the song, he came out wearing the bulletproof vest. It was just not a fresh take. Once again, we find ourselves at the Royal Rumble. Roman Reigns was put in that runner-up heat spot, and this time it was against Shinsuke Nakamura, who with WWE once again.
Oh, I never forget that moment though.
50-50 hatred of Roman Reigns,
first Royal Rumble
and
winner,
simultaneously pushing a babyface.
The fact that Shinsuke won his first Royal Rumble in 2018, that was one of the most surprising moments in Royal Rumble history. So I just want to put that out there.
It obviously didn't stop him from headlining his fourth WrestleMania in a row, and this one was a blockbuster clash with Lesnar that we told you about, and it was just a flop. This was maybe one of the more underwhelming WrestleMania main events in quite some time, even with Reigns bleeding at a time when people thought WWE wasn't going to use blood. Lesnar made his way backstage and felt so bad
that became a meme after that,
in the direction of Vince McMahon.
Call him an asshole and all of that.
Match. Reigns would eventually beat Brock Lesnar 4 months later in the main event of SummerSlam, but this time it was cut short due to his sudden and unfortunate announcement that he was battling leukemia for the second time in his life.
Just to get a cheap
most people not even aware that he had battled it before his wrestling career.
Maybe, I don't know.
This was undoubtedly the biggest turning point in his career and the perception of Roman Reigns. The announcement was shocking enough that virtually every fan was grounded. For all those years of just pent-up anger at someone portraying a pro wrestling character we didn't like, it all vanished, and you worried about a guy named Joe Anoa'i, a family man, and the risks he was taking with his body as a wrestler now paled in comparison to the fight he would have to defeat leukemia for the second time in his life. It didn't even matter what the storylines were. This is about the well-being of a person. It was a humbling moment for any fans who were just booing this guy and just living in the cycle of internet hatred and how come they don't push the wrestlers we like. The fact that he was going through the battle made him likable and relatable. As sad and ironic it may sound, that single announcement did more to make fans like him than they did in the 5 years of pushing him in storylines and scripted performances. And that's just circumstantial. Thankfully, it only took 3 months for him to return to Monday Night Raw, and the announcement that he was in remission received a standing ovation. Reigns had a fairly mild return to the ring, reuniting with the Shield a few more times and facing Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania 35, ending his streak of consecutive WrestleMania main events. After Mania, the Shield story together finally ended with Dean Ambrose leaving WWE for his new home in All Elite Wrestling. While Reigns' year in 2019 was quite unremarkable in terms of storylines, it even saw the god-awful dog food moment with King Corbin.
Oh my God.
Dog food on him. Even when he wasn't getting the heat, he was once again used as the runner-up guy at the 2020 Royal Rumble. As
you honestly think that 2020 was probably one of the biggest turnarounds in WWE history? Even when he came back and announced that he was in remission, you would have think that he would have had the biggest pop, which he did. But the fact that he thought that he was going to get more light than he was years ago, even when he was with the Shield and after they broke up the following year, it didn't really work either. So 2020, when Drew McIntyre won his first Royal Rumble, that was enough that the company was going to end up being a better product, because the 2020 Royal Rumble was really good. once the pandemic hit, everything just went down the tubes since then. But they did try to make something unique out of it by having the Thunderdome with the online crowd. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't, but I personally didn't really find it odd, you know.
Odd at WrestleMania. It looked like the tides were turning and Roman Reigns maybe wasn't going to be the guy until he stepped up to the newly crowned Universal Champion Goldberg at WrestleMania 36. And that ended up being canceled with the entire pandemic times that we were thrown into, and Roman Reigns pulled out of WrestleMania and WWE altogether. This was an abrupt end. The last big bark of the big dog wasn't that big at all. And as things were during those pandemic times, everyone kind of recalculated their lives, and WWE recalculated some things with Roman Reigns. Reportedly, Reigns put his foot down to WWE and Vince McMahon, and he and Paul Heyman pitched an entirely new character, a new take, a new direction with him.
And the fact that he teamed up with Paul Heyman for the first time in his career, you knew that things were about to get really spicy and good, because this is when WWE was really cooking with this character at the time, when he went rogue and turned heel along with Paul Heyman. Was probably one of the best additions to his career. I feel like this version of Roman Reigns I took more seriously than I did with his original babyface run. Some people may have liked it, but I personally didn't. What started in 2015 was the downfall of the character until now becoming one of the most respected figures as a tribal chief. The character with the bloodline is icing on the cake.
They would pitch the tribal chief.
Yes.
Reportedly, once again reportedly, if McMahon didn't give his stamp of approval on this new direction, Reigns could have very possibly left WWE altogether. And over the next 3 years, we've seen him finally transform into the character that connected and was destined to be this entire time. A wrestling incarnation of a Darth Vader villain. A villain so bad that they think they're good the entire time. Hubris incarnate. Someone who truly believes they're entitled to everything they've manipulated their way into being. It's a captivating character, and all of the storylines with him have truly proven that he is also one of the more dynamic character performers. I mean, think of the amount of compelling things.
That he became one of the biggest stars with the longest title reign in history. It tells me that WWE has done Joe some justice, and I'm grateful that they gave this character to us. I'm a big fan of this tribal chief character since 2020. But the one thing I didn't like was him manipulating his cousins into wrestling him, following the family front line of acknowledge him. But the turning point when Jey Uso started acknowledging his cousin, that's when you knew that the bloodline was created. Even Solo Sikoa debut, it became even bigger. Sami Zayn debut when Sami Zayn was trying to join the group because of whatever reason. That storyline alone was really good. It was really good. But it wasn't until the 2023 Royal Rumble when Sami Zayn took a chair and struck Roman Reigns in the back. That was not only pure cinema, but it told a unique story. And it was all because of Triple H. And even when this whole Vince McMahon scandal broke out, you just knew that things were about to get really cooking. With Vince McMahon no longer a part of WWE and is selling more stocks to TKO, Triple H is running things smoothly the right way, and the Roman Reigns character became so iconic when it came to the bloodline and the tribal chief thing. I love this version a lot.
outside of just the matches. A mixed direction babyface hero who turns into a villain organically and gets himself over is a tried and tested formula that has nearly worked almost every time with the right performance.
Yeah, the acting is so good, bro.
Top tier stars like, say, I don't know, The Rock. Yeah, he did this in reverse and became a fan favorite. It should be said that despite the incredibly painful 4 or 5 years Roman Reigns had under the big dog, it wasn't his fault. It was simply the role he different the landscape of WWE.
Bro, what is with this video skipping?
Never became the big dog. He never got to be the tribal chief. It's all a part of the journey.
But the part where you was trying to say that it wasn't his fault, it was all due to Vince McMahon and them and the horrible, bad creative. I think that was what you was trying to say. At the end of the day, I got what I wanted out of this video because of the tribal chief thing and how he became one of the biggest stars today in the WWE. And the last years of painful John Cena wannabe into someone who is now taken more seriously. So, link to the original video will be down below.